Okay, American National Government class. We are continuing in week one, the PowerPoint for chapters 1 and 2 here in your text, talking about political thinking, political culture. We're going to begin with slide number 14. And slides 14 and 15 are what's called the fragment on the Constitution and the Union written by Abraham Lincoln. Okay, it's just a section of a letter he wrote. And what he's talking about is the relation between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Okay, the Declaration of Independence was written, July 4th, 1776. The Constitution was penned and confirmed on September 17th, 1787. So there's about an 11-year distance between them. And he's trying to talk about the relation between the two, okay? And so I'm just going to read this here in slide number 14 and 15, and then let's talk about it. So he says this. He says, without the Constitution and the Union, we could not have attained the result. But even these are not the primary cause of our great prosperity. There is something back of these, entwining itself more closely about the human heart. That something is the principle of liberty for all. Or liberty to all, the principle that clears the path for all, gives hope to all, and by consequence an enterprise and industry to all. Without it, we could not, I think, have secured our free government and consequent prosperity. No oppressed people will fight and endure, as our fathers did, without the promise of something better than a mere change of masters. The assertion of that principle at that time was the word fitly spoken, which is proved an apple of gold to us. The Union and the Constitution are the picture of silver, subsequently framed around it. The picture was made not to conceal or to destroy the apple, but to adorn and preserve it. The picture was made for the apple, not the apple for the picture. So what's he talking about? He's saying, listen, and again, he's writing this, in 1861. He's saying, listen, we've achieved a lot of prosperity as Americans. And our nation has achieved a lot of prosperity. But the reason we have and the reason we flourished is not so much because of the Constitution, but because of something even farther back that drives and informs and influences and supplements and reinforces what's in the Constitution. And what he says is it's the Declaration of Independence, okay? And so he uses this analogy. He said it's the apple of gold, okay? And what he's referring to is a proverb from the Bible, Proverbs 25. The proverb says this, like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word fitly spoken. And so he's saying that the Constitution of the United States is a frame, a picture frame, right? The Constitution is a frame. Okay, the actual picture is the Declaration of Independence. What's the Declaration of Independence? It's liberty, right? It's freedom. And what he's trying to say is, which is more important, okay? If you look at a beautiful picture, think the Mona Lisa, okay? Think some incredibly, rare picture that's worth millions of dollars. Are you going, oh my gosh, that's the most incredible frame I've ever seen. It's beautiful. Check it out, Marge. No, you're not doing that. You're going, oh my gosh, look at the Mona Lisa. Look at this picture of whatever. That's gorgeous. You're not really looking at the frame. That's what Lincoln was trying to say. If you want to understand America, if you want to get our political culture, if you want to get the political thinking that makes America special, you've got to look at the Declaration of Independence, in particular, the first two paragraphs, okay? Because again, inalienable rights, endowed by our Creator with those rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. In other words, if the people haven't consented, government doesn't have the right to rule over them, okay? There's huge, big ideas there, okay? That's the picture, okay? That's the most important part of what American political culture is, okay? The Constitution is really important, but what the Constitution is it just ordered the picture, okay? The Constitution ordered the pre-existing liberty that was declared in the Declaration of Independence, okay? The Declaration of Independence was written in July 1776, but when did we actually win our independence from Great Britain? Okay, in 1783. So for some 6 years, we kept fighting for that independence. We won independence in 1783, okay? But it's one thing to declare independence. It's another thing to win independence, but it's quite another thing to sustain independence for all time, okay? What the Constitution was attempting to do was to frame that liberty so that liberty would last not just for the generation of the founders, but for us today in 2020 and succeeding generations going on hundreds and thousands of years. They were always thinking, what sustains freedom for all time? Maybe this analogy will help you, okay? A fireplace. A fireplace is great, right? Especially in the winter when it's really cold. But the fire that is contained within the frame, if you will, of the fireplace is wonderful. But what if that fire jumps outside of the fireplace and gets on your carpeting and sets your house on fire, okay? That liberty cannot be unlimited. The liberty of the fire must be ordered by the fireplace, right? If it's not ordered, it will move from heating your home to destroying your home and burning it down. That's the same idea of liberty. The founders always thought that liberty was not unlimited. Liberty was not meant to be unrestrained. Too much liberty leads to chaos. Too much liberty basically destroys a nation, destroys a people. It must be ordered in such a way. Again, think of power grid, okay? Unchecked electricity, it's called lightning, okay? It looks really cool from a distance, but if it hits you, right, you're toast. It's got to be ordered to be productive. In the same way, freedom must be ordered if it's going to be productive for generation after generation after generation after generation. So the Declaration of Independence is the apple. The Constitution is the frame. It orders liberty, okay? I actually just helped you a lot if you're going to answer one of the discussion questions about Abraham Lincoln's fragment on the Constitution, okay? So let's go to slide number 16, okay? Let's talk about sovereignty, okay? What's sovereignty? Sovereignty is lordship or rulership or the ultimate authority, okay? Think of a sovereign as like a king or a queen, okay? Whereas in the British system of government, the sovereignty lay within the sovereign, which was the king or the queen, okay? In the United States system, sovereignty lies within the people, okay? So sovereignty lies outside the government and with the people. Okay, so when you see the opening line of the Constitution, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, sovereignty within our system of government lies outside of the government and with the people. So if you really understand this principle, okay, though we must respect politicians, we must respect government, we must respect the policemen, ultimately they work for us. They work for the people, okay? We the people. So every politician, every mayor, every city council member, every policeman, every, again, official of the U.S. government works for us because sovereignty lies outside the government and with the people. If the sovereignty lay within the government, then we would work for the government and the government would control everything, okay? That is a key distinctive we've got to remember about our system of government. And that was designed by the framers intentionally, excuse me, to limit the power of the government. Okay, so if you go to slide number 17, you can kind of see this clarified, where Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men." So what he's trying to say there is that government is meant to secure your natural rights, okay? Is that rights are pre-political. Your rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, property, free speech, conscience, things like that, they pre-existed government. Okay, long before there was the U.S. government, you still had them, by virtue of being alive. That's how the founders understood our pre-political inalienable rights. And if government is doing its job properly, it does not give you rights, it does not give you new rights, it merely secures your pre-existing, pre-political, unalienable rights. That's what they're talking about there in that section, okay? If you go to slide number 18, okay, this is something in your discussion posts. This is a brief section of a book by Harold O.J. Brown called The Reconstruction of the Republic. This captures this idea that the founders had, that long before civil government ever takes place in a nation, we've got to be a nation of self-governing, self-controlled people. Because if we're not self-governing and if we're not self-controlled, government will get out of control, okay? In other words, let me say it this way. There's an inverse relationship between the size and scope of government and the self-control of the people. If the people are very self-controlled, okay? In other words, I'm confusing this. If their self-control is here, government doesn't have to be that strong, right? If we all drove the speed limit, if we never committed a crime, you would not need much of a police force. However, let's say self-control, self-government is very, very weak amongst the people, and there's rioting in the streets, and there's uncontrolled chaos in the streets, and nobody obeys the law, nobody obeys the speed limit, everybody steals, okay? Guess what's gonna happen to the size and scope of government? The police force necessary at the local, state, and national level to keep order to people is gonna have to be huge, okay? The founders recognized there's an inverse relationship between the size and the scope of government and self-control of the people. And they wanted to have the people be self-controlled so that government and its power stays smaller, okay? So that's what Harold J. Brown is talking about here. He says, unless we control our appetites, we cannot control our government. We certainly cannot expect it to limit itself because it senses our appetites far more strongly than it is persuaded of our claims that we are tired of bureaucracy, taxes, and government interference. If the ultimate goal of government is to do everything and change everything, really an infinite challenge, then it will require an infinite effort. In fact, infinite taxes, infinite paperwork, infinite interference, infinite in the sense that there will be no limit to them, no place at which people say, this is clearly all that we want or need, until the limits of exhaustion are reached. Infinite goals mean infinite controls, and infinite controls means zero freedom. So again, this is a good snapshot of this idea of the founders, that unless we control our appetites, unless we're self-governing, government's going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger to satisfy all of our, hey, government, give me this, appetites. Again, food for thought, something to think about as you perhaps write your discussion post this week. I'll stop here.